Greetings, this is Obi-Wan Kenobi, and I have drifted into the underworld. The Star Wars underworld. I have a bad feeling about this.
Here we go. We must go to the lower levels. The underworld.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
You're after something.
Ben.
Since I've started the underworld, I've met so many great friends.
Chris.
I grew up in the 1990s, and mall packaging is nostalgic for me.
Dominic.
What I love most about Star Wars is that it's fun, and it's all-round good times.
So, this is where the fun begins.
May the Force be with us.
This thing really moves!
Whoa! I like this!
I can't believe you came all this way to see me.
What's up, Star Wars fans, and welcome to another episode of the Star Wars Underworld podcast. We are your source for the latest breaking Star Wars news, reviews, and discussion each and every week. And this week, we are talking about episode 9 of Andor. Nobody's listening, but we hope you guys are listening.
But
you know I had to do that. It's going to be a great episode. My name is Chris, and joining me is my good friend, Mr. Dominic Jones.
Hello, Chris. Hello, Ben. Hello, Hannah. Hello, everybody. Yeah, very excited to talk about another solid episode of Andor. And, we've had, this is episode 9 of this season. So that means we've been talking a lot about Andor in the last several weeks. And one thing that's kind of fallen by the wayside while we've been talking about Andor is any news coverage whatsoever from us. We've missed movie reports, we've missed casting stuff, all that sorts of stuff. We'll get to all that, I'm sure, once Andor is done. But there's one piece of news that I saw today that I really feel needs to be brought to everybody's attention, and this comes from the Italian Disney Plus listings for what is coming out in November. Yeah, exactly. Pasta. Apparently on November 12th, there's going to be a short called Star Wars Zen, Grogu and the Dust Bunnies, which also happens to be the name of my new disco funk band. I have so many questions about this.
Answer them.
Oh, good.
He's here to answer them.
Good.
Need to know?
I need to know what is this thing? What is Grogu and the Dust Bunnies? And are Dust Bunnies in Star Wars just exactly the same as they are in real life? And why? And what? And those are my main questions. Why, what, and that said, November 12th, I'm here for it. Sure. Show me a little Grogu short where he, I presume, eats some dust, because that's just what Grogu does. He finds things and eats it. So
Massacre of the Dust Bunnies.
Look out. What a dark twist.
Grogu can't talk. He's making hand signals. I think he said something about a massacre on level 2, but that's really
okay. Yeah. So that's the name of what they call the prisoners in Andor. Yes. Okay, love it. They're the Dust Bunnies. Cassian and the Dust Bunnies that was the working title for this episode. But yeah, tune in on November 12th for a short called Star Wars Zen, Grogu and Dust Bunnies. Who the hell knows? I'm sure it'll be great. Just like this week's episode of the show is going to be.
Awesome. Also joining us, it's Ben Hart, the Star Wars guy.
How's it going, everybody? It certainly has been a shocking episode of
or just start with all the best jokes tonight.
Yeah,
just start.
Don't encourage me.
I wish I had a taser right now.
Oh damn! Again with the dark turn.
Why?
It's also
a
very
dark episode.
So,
It's going to be a dark podcast.
Dark humor, just darkness in general. But yeah, it's gonna be fun, guys. We're gonna discuss all the torture and the imprisonment and the all kinds of good stuff.
Nothing says a good time like torture and imprisonment.
That's right.
Good times.
This episode brought to you by euthanasia. Anyway.
Of children! Yay!
Jesus.
You know what you were signing up for when you clicked that.
Did you? Did you?
I mean,
People listening, were you expecting 5 minutes into the show just this level of just depravity? Like, oh my God.
Oh.
I feel like we need a fresh start. We just got to start over.
I feel like we're still in pre-show mode.
I think so. You know what I think would cleanse the palate? If someone could do a really good impression of an obscure pod racer.
Well, Dom, I'm glad you brought that up.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Glad.
This is totally spontaneous. I was just thinking, hypothetically, could someone do that?
I have been waiting this moment for 23 years, and I'm the person to answer that request. The famous pod racer Mars Guo famously once said, "Row!" And I think he needs a whole show about that. That character needs his own Disney Plus show.
I think enough said. There you go. There we go.
There we go.
Oh yeah, Hannah is also joining us from the Raeside.
Well, yeah, that's me. G'day there.
I thought it was Maz Kazubobo. Maz Kanata Kazuda Ziono, I think is the character's name, right?
That's close enough. That's close enough.
That's what it says in Wikipedia.
It's good to be here. I think I've got my coffee ready. I think this is going to be a super energetic and fun show, which ironically is talking about the most darkest, depressing, and intense Andor episode ever. So yeah, that's going to be a good time chatting with you guys. So can't wait to get into it.
All right.
So we're going to get into that in a very short while. But first, make sure you hit that subscribe button if you're watching on YouTube. And make sure that you review us if you're listening on your favorite podcast app. You can support us by super chatting with us during our live shows, which are on Thursday nights. And you can also become a channel member. And we want to remind you guys, we had an off-schedule show last Saturday as well. So if you're wondering why we haven't talked about episode 8 of Andor yet, we did. It was on Saturday. It's on our YouTube and our podcast feed. So make sure that you didn't miss that one. And also, we got a Discord, and that is where you can get our pre-shows. So if you're wondering where those are,
link in the description right now. I'm ahead of the game this week.
That's right. So it's already there. So no excuse not to join the Discord right now.
I just want to add 2 more quick plugs, both for things that were posted that feature me this week, both on the Convor Call YouTube channel, which is our friends Corey and Aubrey. I joined them for their live stream about Tales of the Jedi, which was a great conversation with some great Star Wars minds. So do check that out. And Corey also posted this week a video from San Diego Comic-Con that we shot literally back in July, because the perfect time to release that sort of content is November. So
Perfect.
There it is.
Nailed it.
But we did a tour of the sideshow booth at Comic-Con, and it's something. I will say that. It is definitely something. And you can decide for yourself what that something is. So go watch that and the very entertaining live stream over on the Convor Call. All right, let's get into Andor. We are, of course, talking about Season 1, Episode 9, Nobody's Listening, written by Beau Willimon and directed by Toby Haynes. Let's begin how we always do. We'll go around the table, give some initial impressions. And Ben, as always, we're throwing it to you first. What did you think of Nobody's Listening?
What did you say? Sorry, did you say something?
Oh, Ben. Inside joke time. I can't hear you.
I can't hear you. Yeah, no one understands that joke.
There's 4 people.
Yeah, like 2 people put them and go, what? Oh, I get that joke. We won't drive this into the ground any more than we already have. This episode, man. My goodness. I stopped short of saying that this might be my least favorite episode of Andor so far. That's not to say I didn't like it.
Wow.
In fact, I quite loved it. I really, really enjoyed it. But, I'll maybe get into it later in the show in regards to we're kind of treading water here. There's not a whole lot happening. We're obviously leading up to the big finale, which I'm very much looking forward to. But I will say, I mean, this is definitely some of the darkest Star Wars we've ever seen. I think the Star Wars has had some pretty high watermarks in regards to darkness and intense scenes. And man, there's more than one scene in this episode that rival even some of the darkest things. Going back to, like, remember Revenge of the Sith? Remember people freaked out about that? Like, oh my God, Star Wars is gonna be PG-13. Oh my goodness. Like, every Star Wars is PG-13 now. Like, it's no big deal. But like back in 2005, it was like, oh my goodness, PG-13 is going to be intense violence and suggestion that people are dying and stuff like that. Like, now it's like right in your face and it's very visceral. And look, I appreciate what they're doing with this. And I think Andor is doing some stuff that's never been done before in Star Wars. And, it's really some incredible stuff. So yeah, like I said, not sure how I rank it in regards to all the episodes so far, but I did really enjoy this one.
Yeah, Andor tends to do this thing, especially with its middle episodes, where it's sort of like, you know what? Everybody just sit with what's going on for a week. Like, we'll advance the plot a little bit, but we're just going to kind of dwell on the precarious situation and the themes and the character arcs. And we're not necessarily advancing anything, but we're making sure you're aware of what's going on. And we'll take some sort of baby steps. And then in the third episode, it cranks it up to 11 with some kind of crazy sequence. And I'm sure it'll be a prison break this go around. Hannah, over to you, your initial impressions of episode 9.
Yeah, this is contrary to what, Ben, you've just said, which is why I was like, what? This is the first episode that I've thought, God, I actually really like this show. This is like the first episode. And usually I come on and I'm like, oh, it's all right, but I got some things to, I didn't like. But this episode, I'm like, I really like this episode. And it wasn't necessarily the dark things, because those I found very confronting. And it's like, wow, this is quite an extreme for Star Wars. Some of the most extreme things we've seen. But something about the intensity, the pace was a little bit better in this episode for me. But in terms of like the whole of Andor, I'm still seeing that issue of what we're talking about. Whereas I felt like the previous episode and this episode could have been condensed into a 1-hour episode quite nicely. Like, we could have seen Andor enter the prison and like get to know everyone and like still see all the things we saw in episode 9. So like, I feel like they are stretching out some things, which I'm not enjoying too much. But yeah, I really enjoyed this episode for a bit of a different take. Yeah.
Nice. Chris, your thoughts on Nobody's Listening?
Yeah, this kind of threw people through a loop, because they did this thing where they were doing trilogies of episodes, but then they snuck kind of a standalone episode in an episode 7. Right. So this is technically chapter 2 of 3 in one long movie, essentially, about what's going on in the Imperial prison. And I think that's why not a lot happened, just like not a lot happened in the second episode of the series, and not a lot happened in the 5th episode of the series. Right. This is along those guards. So yeah, it's technically the 9th episode, but really we're still on part 2 of this story arc that's kind of happening. And I think it tracks really well with those other comparable middle episodes. And if we had seen, just like if we had seen, well, they did show us the verse 3 episodes all at once for a reason, so people would be satisfied. I think that, the people that are binge watching this show and get to see all of the episodes 4, 5, and 6 together, I think they're going to really appreciate the slow build up and payoff with the awesome sequence at the end with the eye. And then I think we're in a similar situation now where it's like, upon a binge watch, this episode is going to fit really well between the last episode and the episode that's coming. But I can kind of take a step out from that, see the pattern that's going on, and appreciate it for what it is, and appreciate the last episode for what it is, but is continuing to develop a lot of fantastic characters, including showing us the origin of Snoke. Super exciting.
See, hey,
I will slip that one by you.
What did I say? What did I say? Chris would say last week. What did I say on Saturday?
Prediction.
I said it exactly. That joke quote unquote would come flying out of your mouth.
I thought about shaking it up and saying, Smeagol, the presence of Aubrey in the chat is unfortunately just not enough to get me over to that side. Almost.
The Lord of the Rings chat.
I almost did it. But yes, Snoke origin story. I'm all for it. So yeah, this episode was fantastic for the writing, as all the other episodes really have been. There's a lot of subtlety in it. They are continuing with the fan service that is extremely veiled, and you have to really kind of think about it, and you're like, oh, that was fan service or a reference, but it's not like, it doesn't take away from the episode. You can blink and you can miss what the references that they're putting in there. So I'm excited to kind of talk about those little moments. And just like, a lot of the previous episodes, just stellar singular performances by some of the actors in this episode. Just incredible acting performances. So the writing and the acting continues to be some of the strongest parts of this show, and they continue to keep my interest without much action, which I think is awesome. So this is great.
Yeah. I love these episodes where, like I was saying, they just sort of make us like sit with things for a week. Because sometimes I feel like the Star Wars mantra of faster and more intense sometimes means we miss some of these littler moments. And, the evolution of Andy Serkis as Kino through this episode really has to be done with a full episode like this, of seeing him go through the sort of process of realizing what is actually going on in this episode in the prison. So I thought that was terrific, and like you said, Chris, great writing, great acting. I also want to say great cinematography in this episode in particular. I want to shout out the cinematographer Adriano Goldman, who just did a terrific job of making some of these scenes, just giving them that little bit extra. And all those scenes with Deidre and Bix, the way it's shot and the way Denise Go moves through the frame and the way the camera sort of follows her and frames her up, she just looks like such a monster. It's just like terrifying. And I mean like a literal monster. Like you think like that should be like the creature from Alien looking down at Bix. So just terrific stuff. So all around I continue to be just very, very, very happy with this show. But let's start. I think we should start with Andy Serkis's character, with Kino. Not Snoke, not Gollum, not Caesar.
Anyway.
I don't know. If you look, he's got a little mark that becomes the scar of Snoke. I mean,
the whole episode was about hand signals, so he was definitely Caesar.
I'm having flashbacks.
No. This is a long time.
2000. This is 2015 all over again.
He's Ulysses Claw from the classic film Avengers: Age of Ultron.
Yes, 100%.
The classic film.
Disney owns it. They can do that.
But we see he goes through sort of the most sort of specific evolution in this episode. And Chris, I'll throw it over to you. What have you thought of this character as a whole and the way they've gone about portraying his arc over the last two episodes? Really,
I think it's very straightforward. Like, he is acting out of his own self-interest. He wants to get out of the prison, and he wants everything to go smoothly until he's out, so that nothing messes that up for him. So that's very understandable character motivation. So bringing it to a point where he realizes, oh, that's not the motivating factor anymore. He's not gonna get out. That makes sense. I think it was really brilliant and and expositionally natural way to move his character into a position where he's now going to be working alongside instead of against Cassian Andor in his attempts to get out of this place. Because I'm sure Cassian not only doesn't want to be there, but knows that one way or the other, it's not going to be a good time for him, because he's in for it a little bit more than just for what he's in for now once they find out who he is.
Yeah, it's been interesting. I feel like what's going on in the prison with the prisoners at the very least is just sort of a microcosm of the whole galaxy.
Yes.
Where everybody thinks, oh yeah, the Empire could be on our side. We just got keep our heads down, do it, get our work done, do what needs to be done, and everything will work out fine. As long as we follow the rules, do the right thing, the Empire, they actually do have our best interests in mind. And the moment at the end of the episode when Cassian asks him for how many guards are on each level, that might be one of the most satisfying moments in the entire series thus far, when he gives the actual answer, because you realize, oh, this guy, to quote K2, you're a rebel now. He's in the fight. He's joining up. And next week, I'm sure will be very exciting. Hannah, what did you think of Kino in this episode?
Yeah, I was really happy to see him a lot more, and that he had a lot more of a kind of a role here. When we saw him last week, I was worried that this would be kind of just a fun cameo, even though this is the show of no cameos, but more of the cameo of the character of like Andy Serkis, the actor Andy Serkis coming in, like, oh yeah, he's like the guard dude, but maybe you probably wouldn't see him too much in the following episode. So I was super happy that he was pretty involved, he kind of is going to be seemingly pretty involved with this kind of prison break that we might see. But yeah, his character was just phenomenal, and like what you've just been saying, like his little arc there, he refused to say the number, and then at the end he says it, was just kind of very satisfying moment. And there was also about midway through the episode where they're in that corridor and they're talking about something's happening in level 2, what's happening, and he just gets so fired up. He just wants everyone to be in line, and he like punches Melchi in like the stomach, but he just gets yeah, it's like, whoa, he's not happy. And you could just feel the intensity, and his performance of that was just spot on. And then just a few moments later, there's a great shot, talking about the great cinematography, great shot where it kind of pans around him to be straight on, and he's kind of just looking just past the camera, and he's giving that, not a speech, but he's given those orders, like, it's just a rumor. Like, if it's true, it's true. If it's not, it's not. Like, I don't know what it's kind of along the lines of that. Mm-hmm. And that was the most perfectly delivered couple of lines that I've just ever heard. And I don't know if that's probably exaggerating, but I just thought that was such a fantastic performance. I was just blown away by. I was like, wow, this guy can really, really act. Yeah. Not that I doubted him as an actor, but it was just phenomenal. So I loved that character. Yeah.
Yeah, we tend to think of Andy as the mocap guy. And then to see him just as himself, you're like, oh yeah, there's a whole other level to those performances that he gives when, he looks like Snoke or an ape or Gollum or what have you.
Yeah, actually, there was a few moments because I noticed in The Hobbit, I don't know if they do this in Lord of the Rings. Oh, I don't even know how it works. I need to watch the behind the scenes again, where, the facial shape is kind of based around Andy's look, and then they just kind of manipulate it to Gollum's kind of head. But there was a couple of moments where like Andy would like look up or something, and be facing downwards, and I'm just like, oh, he kind of looked like Gollum there. Like, that was kind of weird. I was kind of seeing Gollum in a few moments. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah.
It is funny. I've noticed that as well with him, and with Caesar in particular. There's moments where I look at him in these episodes, I'm like, oh, that was like Caesar, and even Yeah, it looks like Snoke every now and again. He makes an expression, and I'm like,
Snoke, and also his voice, the Snoke voice, is just really kind of a deeper version of his own. So anytime he's like gets really angry in Andor, like it's like, oh, it's Snoke, it's coming out in him. He's like comes out of the thing. He's like, I am the leader of this room, and all these 50 guys answer to me. Some even called me a supreme leader.
God, if this show were written by Jon Favreau, he would say that. It absolutely would.
I love you, Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni, but you know it to be true.
Search your feelings. Ben, I want to ask you. Something, because on the Saturday show or the weekend show that we did this past week, talking about the last episode, Catherine Neen brought up a theory that they were building all of those pieces on each level, and then they were being sent to another level where they were being disassembled. And we were like, "Oh, that'd be such a sick twist. It'd be so dark and brutal." Turns out it was even worse than that. It's not the machinery that's being sent to different levels; it's the people. It's so dark. What did you make of that reveal?
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah.
And just the fact that you something insidious is going on. Insidious. But something. It's the Empire, and I like that. The fact that you're not getting out, and you have these bickering prisoners where Kino is this guy. He's like, just keep your head down. Just don't get in my way. I've got this certain amount of shifts left, and I'm going to get it done, and I'm going to get out of here, and you better not stand in my way. We're just going to do exactly what we're told, and all about playing to the program. Mm-hmm. And then you have people like Melshi who are like, yeah, we're never getting out of here. Like it's things like, Melshi is kind of the woke dude. He knows what's up. He knows what's up. And I like, and the fact that Kino's story in this episode in particular is kind of a microcosm of, like you were saying earlier, the galaxy as a whole. A lot of people are like, as you would in that situation, as we do in the real world. Sometimes things get bad. You're just like, it'll blow over. Things like this happen. No big deal. Just keep your head down, go on, whatever. And realizing that, him progressing to the point of like, okay, now I got to start a rebellion. Like now I have to actually take up arms. It directly mirrors not just everyone in the galaxy, but Cassian's journey. Cassian starts the show as just a thief. He's just trying to get by. He's looking out for himself. Now he's reaching the point at about the same time that Kino is of, I have to start my own rebellion. I have to do something. I can't just sit back because, there's no way out of this unless you take action. So I love all that. And just the I don't know, the stupidity, the pure evilness of the Empire. They can't just run a prison and just let people go when they're done. It's like, no, there has to be an extra layer. There has to be an extra layer of, oh yeah, you're never getting out of here. You're probably going to die because they're just going to fry everyone in one swoop. It's wild that, and just as soon as it's no surprise that the Empire was taken down as it was, because of course they're the Empire.
Mm-hmm. So I have a theory here. Melshi. You said, he's the guy. He seems to know what's going on. We know they send people to different floors after they're released, quote unquote. I feel like Melchi's been released at least once before, because he seems to know everything. He's always saying, don't look at the number. You're here until they don't want you to. He says he describes the old fella who dies from the stroke. He describes him as being he's getting freedom by dying, which is horrific. And there's just a couple of other moments where I'm like, Melchi seems to really know what's going on, and I wonder if he is one of the guys who's been sent to the different floors, and it's just a matter of he doesn't want to tell people too much because he doesn't want to completely destroy their spirits. But he does tell Cassian, like, just don't think about the number. Just he basically tells him, accept your fate and live here until you die, until the Empire's done with them.
We've kind of been assuming that, this is how Cassian meets Melshi, and Melshi ends up, becoming a part of the rebellion through this arc. But I think it's possible that Melshi's like already a part of the rebellion, and he's like undercover, perhaps trying to break people out of this prison or like get intel about what's going on.
Or even he was just a rebel agent who got caught.
Yeah.
Because he has that kind of leadership kind of vibe to him. Kino may be in charge, but Melchi's the real leader.
Yeah.
Because speaking of just their construction of what they're making, I've seen this theory around a lot of this theory that it's like parts of the Death Star, and we talked a little bit about it in the episode last Saturday. I think I'm furthering this theory. I have a new theory, because this whole idea that they've wiped out level 2 kind of inexplicably, like just bulldoze them, not literally. So, and I think what they're doing, or the Empire's at a point where they realize they're either behind, if this, like, they're making things for the Death Star, they're behind on schedule, or they need to be, like, making all the things, but they're getting to the kind of the pointy end where it's coming together, and they still want it under wraps. They still don't want anyone knowing, and they decide, they're not going to let anyone out ever. They're going to let people count down their days. Before they leave, they'll, like, kill them, or, like, make an accident, or they'll just, like, wipe out levels of people to ensure that they don't get out and be like, hey, this is what, like, we're making all these things. It kind of looks like a starship thing that we could be making for. So that's my running theory of, like, what they're making, and maybe a bit of an explanation of, like, why they're going to start wiping out. Like, I reckon next episode we're going to hear that, like, level 4 and level 7 get wiped out as well, and then it's like that, that furthers, like, Cassian and Melchi and like, what's his name? Lino. I was about to call him Andy. Lino, is that his name?
Kino.
Lino.
It's close. One letter off. KL. There.
Just call him Snoke.
But it's gonna be this, like, it's just counting down before they're all wiped out kind of thing, and that's this urgency that they have to have that prison break next episode.
Mm-hmm. I wonder, if they are building the Death Star, it's clear in Rogue One that the rebellion knows that some sort of weapon is being built, that a planet killer is being built, and the various factions of the rebellion are looking into it. The Rebel Alliance proper is looking for the Ursos. Saw is on Jeddah, trying to stop them from getting more kyber crystals. All that stuff is going on. Everybody's kind of focused on the planet killer. I wonder if, possibly we might see Cassian be the first guy to get a bit of a sense that something is going on, to pick up on something, that they're building a weapon. We don't know what it is. We don't know what it could be, but it's out there and they're building it. And we need to figure it out, because he does seem to be on the team in at the beginning of Rogue One that is very involved in tracking down Jyn Erso, tracking down details about the rebellion. He's there on the Ring of Kafrene, which Kafrene gets a shout out in this episode. Nice. Yeah. He's there, talking to that dude that he kills, and K2 is the one that breaks Jyn out with Melchi. It just and then of course he gets sent on the mission to take out Galen. So it could make sense, that what gets him to actually sign on with the rebellion proper is, we're going to have you look into this thing that you first accidentally discovered while you were in prison, in this sort of awful prison.
And you get the sense, even from the get-go in A New Hope, but especially expanded on in Rogue One, that the idea in this galaxy prior to A New Hope, the idea that you could have a weapon that's powerful enough to destroy an entire planet is unfathomable. That whole idea, you have, like Ben Kenobi's like, oh yeah, they destroyed by the Empire. It's like, wait, take 1,000 ships with more firepower than like Han Solo knows it. You have Cassian, when he hears about it, he's like, a planet killer. Like, what? How is that even possible? I would love it if this show kind of further that, because we're already seeing a lot of Rogue One hints already. I would love it if, like, this show is great at showing a grander scale and dealing with so many different characters and having certain characters pick up certain bits of information, but not putting them two and two together. That, because we can assume a lot of people in the Empire, like Dedra Miro, don't know about the Death Star. This is a big secret for everyone. It would be interesting to see. And we know Saw Saw is onto it. He doesn't know what it is. He knows something out there. He knows they're building something. He knows it has to do with kyber crystals. He's on the case. He can't figure it out until it literally kills him. But, I love the idea that, we're heading towards that. The Death Star's out there somewhere. It's not ready yet, but, and it would seem they would need a lot of manpower to make that happen and a lot of components, and wouldn't put it past them if this is actually where it's going on in this prison.
Yeah.
That's no moon.
Thank you. I like that's the moon. It's
well done. Well done. Yeah. For anybody that doesn't check out the pre-show on the Discord, we rediscovered the Star Wars app on our phones and remembered that there is
sounds.
That there's it's the soundboard in there.
And it hasn't been updated since 2018, but there's a lot of good stuff on there.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. It's good stuff. Good stuff. Yeah, it'll be interesting to cut it to see where all of this winds up. It wouldn't shock me if we don't really find out what's going on in the prison. I feel like next week is about getting these guys out of the prison. And we're seeing Cassian be kind of involved in the organization of whatever prison break there might be, and whatever sort of mini rebellion there is in the prison. But this still strikes me as a Cassian who is very much, he's still just looking out for number one. He wants to get out of prison. He doesn't want to spend a 6-year sentence in there without even knowing that at the end of a 6-year sentence he'll just be taken up to a different floor and have that begin again. The process begin again. But he's sort of looking out for number one. Ben, let me throw you this to you. What do you think of Cassian's sort of organization efforts, and how do you think this is going to eventually get him to become the rebel agent we know and love?
I mean, and Tony Gilroy's been talking a lot about it in interviews, stuff like that. It is that, this show is about how someone becomes a revolutionary, how someone can go from, a standpoint of just trying to look out for number one to leading a rebellion, which is basically, that's what he does. Like, Jyn and Cassian are the ones that go to Scarif and what convinces everyone else to go. Like, they're the ones that make that choice. They are the ones that basically save the rebellion, as Saw Gerrera says. That's a big deal. And now you have this thing. We're now in this episode starting to see this very proactive Cassian, this Cassian that is not resigned to sit around. He spent the first episode just like wide-eyed, just like going like, oh my God, I'm in this situation. How do I get out of this? To now he's like, oh, well, surely you've thought about breaking out of here. Like, surely you're not going to sit on your hands and do this. So we're already seeing that revolutionary coming to life in this episode, that, he's going to be leading the charge in the next episode. He already is. He's the one that convinces Kino, with some help from the Empire, to start this jailbreak, which we can imagine probably starts about 5 minutes after this episode ends.
Yeah. And, of all ways to sort of for Kino, especially to find out that the truth is, I mean, we've had some pretty devastating deaths on this show already. I felt like Nemec was especially visceral in a previous episode. The guy just dying from a stroke. I mean, this show has not gone out of its way to have like spectacular deaths the way Rogue One does, but yeah, they make them feel, they hit you hard with them.
How did we go from socks being canon to strokes being canon in several weeks?
That's just
right.
That's how it goes.
Too real. They got socks and strokes in Star Wars. I'm not sure how I feel about this.
Yeah. Poor Olaf or Olaf or whatever however his name is pronounced.
Olaf.
Olaf. It's Olaf, but it's Olaf,
Disney.
but it's a U
Disney's
instead
everywhere.
The way that's played out through the episode is just so well done. It's another great performance.
This reminds me of the show Squid Game. There's a lot of similarities to that show and the way they are doing this.
Can you elaborate without spoilers, or is it
just
no?
Well, I mean, in Squid Game, the difference is here they're unwilling prisoners, and they're made to perform tasks, and there's potentially life and death consequences. In Squid Game, they all agree to perform the tasks as a competition, but there's still the life and death consequences. And once they're in the game, there is a lot of control going on. So I think one of the things that's similar is just kind of the aesthetic, like all of the white and everybody kind of wearing the same outfits is very similar to Squid Game. There's a character in Squid Game that is an older character who has some health issues, who's very similar to Olaf in this way. So I think some of the dynamics that exists between like Cassian and Olaf, for example, remind me a little bit of the lead character in Squid Game and that older character, which of course we know that the lead character in Squid Game is going to be in Star Wars.
Yeah, the
So
acolyte.
there's that connection
That's
there.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, bringing it. It's all connected. It's all connected, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I loved in the moment of his death, just seeing how much Kino cared. Like, there's a guy who tries to look like he doesn't care, but he really he does, and that's why he ultimately agrees to go along with what Cassian is planning,
and continues to further cement their situation of just like, this guy was so close to the end. This guy was so close. He and like Kino, in a really kind of a jovial way, is kind of like rooting for him, like, oh, you're almost ready to go home. It's great, you're almost there. And seeing the guy comes up like, yeah, I can't save him. Like, what's even the point? We're never getting out of here anyway. This is, I think somebody comments like, this is a release for him. He's getting the good end of the deal. He's dying. We all are stuck here still. And goes back to the last episode where someone, just falls on the ground and unalives themselves. It's messed up, but it further cements it like they are trapped here. They have nothing left to lose.
There's no escape.
With that guy that died last episode, I thought that was the sign language guy, but then when he was in this episode, I was like, well, who was the other dude? Did anyone think that? That sign language guy that's like connecting to the person in the other tunnel.
I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I thought it was him. But yeah, anyway.
Yeah. I think it was prisoner number 17 who passed away. We'll never forget his name.
Never
prisoner
forget.
number 17.
By the way,
maybe that was Lino.
Why haven't we got a prisoner number 1138 in this show yet?
I mean, given
all of the THX references in this, come on.
Yeah, right. This is
one big one.
Very THX. Yeah, it's almost they almost can't do an 1138 reference in this because the whole thing, like you said, is
when they break out of the prison, they're just gonna open a hatch, just go up
the sun,
outside world,
just the sun. Oh man, let's talk about some of the other elements of the episode. I want to talk about Deidre Miro.
Yes,
Deidre Miro.
Go.
Yeah.
We've talked about how we've been kind of, as much as she's an Imperial, you kind of been rooting for her. I think this is the week where that stopped.
Yep.
Yeah.
This is the moment.
We all have a turn.
Yeah, this is the moment we're all like, oh yeah, she is the villain. Yeah, she is the bad guy.
The last couple weeks is like, yay, Deidre, and then you're just like,
you realize what you've been cheering for the entire time. You're like, yeah, let's go, rise to the Rex. This is you can torture Bix. Oh God, sorry.
This is what I was saying, a few weeks ago when I was talking about how they were setting up like the antagonists and the protagonists and how they had some of the villains initially as we were getting to know them in the protagonist role. And they definitely had that with Deidre because she was fighting internally with people trying to kind of sabotage her and her mission within the ISB. And now that she's moved past that, now we're getting to the point where all the characters are converging and different characters that have been protagonists in their own storylines, when the storylines cross, one has to become a protagonist and one has to become an antagonist. because that's the conflict that's happening there. So now we're seeing her being presented as an antagonist because she's getting put against another protagonist, and Bix, who is also protecting another protagonist in Andor. But I think you were talking, Dominic, earlier about the cinematography of her scenes and how great it was. I want to add to that and say, beyond that, the acting of those scenes on her part was just absolutely incredible. She was so menacing, so focused, so subtle. Like, you know, I didn't really think I would know. This show is so subtle that I am noticing the way she breathes. Like the way that she breathes is actually very calculated and measured and is conveying messages. Like, you know, for instance, like after later later in the episode, when she's accosted by our stalker, Cyril Simp.
Everyone's favorite creep.
Which again, that's another situation where two protagonists are being put against each other, and now it's almost like they're both antagonists. But you know, after that, as she's walking into her office, she like sighs, and you can hear it audibly, and then to make sure you notice it, towards the end of that scene, she sighs again a lot more clearly. But there's like a little sigh as she's just walking, as before she walks into the office. Like that level of subtlety is just incredible to me. Yeah. Like you look at those scenes, the pairing of the cinematography and the acting, just the subtleties of when she talks, when she pauses, the expression on her face, little micro expressions, the direction that her eyes are looking. And like you were saying earlier, Dominic, her leaning in like that. You know, there's just all these things where it's just like every piece of the performance is just meticulously planned. And it's just absolutely incredible to me how they're executing it, both in the acting, the writing, and the cinematography. And then to speak of the writing, I don't know if we've mentioned it yet. This is the showrunner from House of Cards.
Is it?
This is Bill Williman. He is the developer and showrunner of House of Cards, who wrote this episode and the last episode. So there's some chops here. And then this is again Toby Haynes directing, as he's the director from the first 3 episodes of the series. And of course, he's known from Reichenbach, Fall, and Sherlock. And I think Pandorica Opens from Dr. Who, 2 of the greatest episodes of those series. So this is like top of the line writers and directors here, paired and great cinematographers, paid with put together with amazing acting from some known people, some unknown people. And this is peak television here. Like, this is great. Again, people can talk back and forth over is it really Star Wars to have euthanasia and torture at this level, and you know, that's a debate of how it fits within the Star Wars universe. But like, as a show, I am fully confident that if this was like a Star Trek show or a Battlestar Galactica show, I would be watching it and liking it just as much. I don't like this because it's a Star Wars show. I like it because it's a good show.
Yeah, if this were Andor, just Agent of the Rebellion, drop all the Star Wars of it, just set in some, you know, set 5,000 years in the future. Be like, that's great. This is great. This the whole sort of interrogation scene and the torture devices and all of that stuff. It really it's unlike anything we've really seen. It's the kind of stuff that's always been alluded to in Star Wars, right? Like the probe droid or the medical droid, Dr. Ball, sort of comes into the into the the prison cell on the Death Star, and then we cut away. We don't see Princess Leia's face as she's injected with whatever it is that droid injects. No. But we again, with just sort of the cinematography, and this is kind of editing as well, just the close up on Adria Arjona's face when they're showing her listening to it. Yeah, just some powerhouse performances in those. In
And
that scene.
that guy, I don't even know his name, but the guy that's just so cheerily just talking about
what's it, like,
so much.
Ghost
like,
or
oh
something?
yeah, well they
Dr.
found these
Ghost.
two, they found the crew just huddled under the thing. It was the screams of mostly children.
I think
Like,
it's
what?
I think it's fascinating
Yes, oh
because
God.
he
Most
has
twisted Weasley child of all time.
He has like some of that nonchalantness of say like Dr. Pershing, except Dr. Pershing we feel like has like a good streak. And Hannah, you recently did a great.
I was about to say,
with that
me and
actor.
Dr. Pershing were like this now.
You know
We're
that.
buddies.
Oh. So check out Hannah's channel for that. That was a great interview. But the Raeside, Raeside. But yeah, Dr. Gorth. It's just it's almost more creepy to have someone who just seems nice. And then just like they just talking about isolating the screams of dying children, like just like everyday conversation. That's like more menacing than like a Dr. Nuvo Vindi who's just like over the top and maniacal and like
Blue Shadow Virus.
I'm going to kill you, but I am having
Drop
fun.
it in the galaxy.
So that was just incredible, the subtlety behind that. And it's also kind of funny the difference between how like the Doctor and Deidre were kind of using the technology from a psychological perspective, because the Doctor's kind of like we're trying to make it so you're safe, like we're tying you down for your own safety, and we've had some incidents and we don't want that to happen.
We're strapping you to a chair, but don't worry about it. It's for your own
at
safety.
any time just speak or like shake your head or you'll be fine. And then Deidre's in there just like, yeah, you better tell us everything, because if we do this multiple times, your brain's gonna rot. Completely different.
But also hammering home the whole. This is also connects with what's happening in the prison, because the galaxy under the Empire is in a state of damned if they do or damned if they don't. In regards to, I love it when Bix retorts to her and says, you wouldn't believe me anyway. Like you're gonna you just want to torture me anyway. You're gonna do it anyway. You just get it over with, because no matter what I say, can convince you otherwise.
I mean, it reminds me of was it Han after he was tortured? He's like, they didn't even ask me any questions. They just tortured me. What's going on?
They didn't even ask me any questions. Sorry. Go ahead.
I have like 3 points about this situation to make. Just back with the Doctor as well, the way he delivered those lines I thought was so spot on, because like what we're saying, it was so conversationally, but like there was just something about it that he didn't even seem like an actor. Like I didn't even compute that he was an actor doing this. Like he didn't look like he was relaying lines. Not that everyone else does look like that, but he just said it so perfectly casual with the right tone, the right like breathing. I don't know what, like I'm sure some like vocal actor analyst could be like, that is a spot on performance, because just the way he says it was just like,
they actually got a real torture doctor for this episode.
Yeah, he wasn't an actor at all.
Secret sauce, Tony Gilroy. He goes method full on.
So you have a 2-week vacation from Guantanamo Bay. So you should act.
Oh God.
Oh, it's so good though. What's the other thing I was going to say? Oh yes, the cinematography. Did we all notice that when they shut the door on Bix and the pan? With the little A New Hope pan,
awesome.
so satisfying, so great. And there was a third really great, incredible point I was going to make that I have totally forgotten. So that's my
We'll
thoughts.
come back.
Anyway, yeah, we'll come back.
Sometimes I just have a lot of points and I just give it an arberary number. Like I have 3 points because I know there's 7.
Yeah.
There's not.
But there's
really
actually
3.
but there's actually 12. What did we make of Bix attempting to resist and kind of giving pieces and the back and forth and we talked about this scene from Deidre's side, but from Bix's side, her kind of attempts to maintain both her sanity and also protect her old friend Cassian.
I mean, it's interesting because she's both lying and then using bits of the truth that she feels like isn't going to be damaging to her. Like, she'll talk about, oh yeah, I signaled them and stuff like that, because she knows that's not really gonna, they already know that. But then she also doesn't want to admit that she can identify the buyer and everything. So but I also again love her acting, beyond just that scream that you mentioned, Dominic. The other piece of acting that I was really impressed with from her was when Deidre mentions, and what if your colleagues was killed trying to get your freedom, and the look on her face when the traumatic death of Tim with 2 M's is brought up.
R.I.P. Tim Mama.
Yeah, that was good. That was good. You can tell, like, she's still processing that. That's still, that's still at the forefront of her mind.
I swear there's a line, there's a moment where Deidre says something and then Bix says something back in like a fake British accent just to mock her. It's
I
so
noticed
good.
that too.
Is
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
Oh my god!
It's just it's like one word or 1 or 2 words, and,
like,
and you listen to it, and you're like, did she just go British for that scene? It's like when Carrie Fisher talks to Peter Cushing in A New Hope. She's like, "Governor talking." You're like, "Huh? Where did this accent come from?"
There's some pretty British moments in this episode. Like, I think that the kind of officer warden guy was like, "Hands up." I'm like, dang,
hands up, governor.
Also, I forgot to mention in the last episode, but that one guy when they're chasing down Bix, and that guy comes out of nowhere and he goes, "Get her!"
Oh my gosh!
Like,
Yes,
give that guy an Emmy. My God.
Yeah, several entries for the best scream Emmy in Andor. Get a couple of.
I'm still shaken from when Luthen yelled at us. I'm not recovering from that. Okay.
Look at me.
Luthen on the sideline for this week. Has it?
Luthen Rail, not in this episode. That's disappointing.
Is this the first episode that he's kind of been?
I think so.
Yeah,
it's the second episode.
Yeah, really.
I do like that we can almost still feel his presence though. It's not like I didn't really forget about Luthen, even though we didn't see him.
They were talking about him.
I think they mentioned him, didn't they?
What does he have you doing?
Yeah. I think they mention him without ever saying his real name, because Deidre always refers to him as Axis.
Yes.
And Mon Mothma and Vel play the pronoun game and just say, "Yeah, him. What's he doing? What are you? What?
Yeah.
Did he send you there?"
Yeah.
And they just kind of keep it secret. But yeah, Luthen Rael just
keep it secret. Keep it safe.
Yeah, he's getting a nice.
Chris. Whoa.
But then also another connection they make with Cassian, which I love, is the fact that they're like, "Oh, he came." Like, she told us he came back with money. They're like, "Oh, maybe he was involved with the Aldani because he's got money now."
Yeah,
they're connecting the dots.
That's a little bit. I gotta say, that's a little bit of a stretch. That's like Toby Haynes directed Sherlock, so all of a sudden Deidre Miro has the crime solving abilities of Sherlock Holmes. Like,
there's red dust on your
money.
boots.
There's
you
money
over there.
He has money. That must mean he was involved in the Aldani heist.
How do you know he didn't just win the lottery or something?
I think
he's also a thief. He could have just stolen it from somewhere else.
I think Deidre obviously is assuming that everything is connected. That's her whole theory. So, she's just going to assume that they're all working together on all of this. And she just needs to throw out these things to keep getting more support from her superiors. So she's always seeming to have to convince her boss about, hey, I'm not wasting time or resources here. Like, it's plausible that, this could be happening. And it's just, she'll throw any piece of evidence that's supportive of that out there.
It was the scratches. It was the scratches at the phone port that she could tell.
Yes.
Or maybe she just pulls a She-Hulk and she just looks at the camera and go well, the name of the show is Andor, so he must be involved somehow.
Yeah. Just breaking the fourth wall. Love it. Let's talk about our old friend Cyril Karn. Back to his
Whoa.
God.
Back to his cereal eating ways.
The best Karn episode so far.
He's back to his cereal eating ways. He's hanging out with his mother, which, by the way, I realized something that I probably should have realized a long time ago. I didn't realize his mother lived on Coruscant. I thought she lived on
What?
Morlana 5. No, I assumed
you missed the scene where he literally went up to Coruscant and then went up to her door. Did you sleep through that scene?
I must have it just didn't register for me. I assumed she lived wherever the hell he was in the Outer Rim. I assumed that's where it was. And
I don't know why that's so
you thought he was
upsetting. That's
commuting
really
back and
upsetting.
forth to Coruscant to the Bureau standards?
Well, that's what I thought. The scene was weird that he was back at his mother's house.
Oh, where did you think he was living?
I thought he had moved to Coruscant. I thought he'd escaped his mother's wrath. Maybe that's what Uncle Harlow had done for him. She had made.
Don't mention Uncle Harlow.
I know another mention of Uncle Harlow in this episode.
And
we
when I say this
better
episode has intensity, that is why. The intensity is who is Uncle Harlow? When will we see him?
There's a twist coming. Uncle Harlow. Here's my outside bet. Uncle Harlow is Luthen.
Oh.
Because it was revealed in this episode, presumably that, as we thought, Vel is not Luthen's daughter, but Luthen's got to be related to somebody because it's Star Wars, so it's got to be a familial connection. And there's going to be a scene where Kylo Ren shows up for some reason. He's going to look at Cyril and he's going to be like, "You are a Rael," and we'll all be like, "What? No."
Wow.
Anyways, that's
so quickly.
That's irrelevant.
A Star Wars Huddle exclusive. Adam Driver will be reprising the role of Kylo Ren in the next episode of Andor.
I was at a very serious bookstore looking at very serious photography books, and I pulled out an Annie Leibovitz book, and there was the famous Adam Driver goat photo in front of me, and I'm like, this meme is on paper in front of me in a book. That's odd.
There we go.
And there was goats. In the Aldani episode.
No, Ben.
No, they weren't goats.
They weren't goats.
Look, I wasn't gonna say but yeah, horny goats.
No, they were sheep. They were sheep, Ben.
That's why there's a sheep
goats. What's the
grazier
difference?
warning
They
in
were horny.
Australian
It's all
weather app to put your sheep away when it's cold.
There you
The
go.
horny sheep.
There you go. Good eye. So Cyril. He's back. He's not gone back to his mother's. He's been living at his mother's, something that just went over my head for some reason. And then we see him track down Deidre outside the ISB. Hannah, I'll throw this to you. What did you think of old Cyril and his evolution in this episode?
Yeah, for sure. Well, one thing with Cyril is like, one, he's like really irritating, but also two, that's just his character. He's annoying. Yeah. But two, I'm actually not super enjoying the way he's written into this show. And I know a lot of people, they kind of love how he's this like really awkward background. He's trying, but he's failing character. But I'm not really enjoying that. I feel like maybe we should have seen more of him like till this point or something. I think I need a little bit more from him. And one thing with his character is that I can't fully commit to his reasoning of why he's so intense about finding Cassian. Like, I understand, like, the whole loss of the job thing, but, you know, that's to me, that's got more with the Empire than it got to do with Cassian. I don't know. And, like, I just can't believe the reasoning for him being so obsessed with Cassian. So there's something about his character that I'm not fully kind of connecting with. But this episode specifically, and like this interaction he has with Deidre is like ultimate cringe level, really, really awkward. Just like, every moment you're like, okay, creepy that he's stalking her, and he like, you know, sidles out like that. He's like, hey, I've been waiting here for you, and she's like, the hell? And you know, great bit of dialogue. And then it gets even worse when she like walks away and he does that little arm grab and you just go, ooh, yuck. But yeah, it's very, very cringy moment. But I think that was good writing because I think it was meant to be very awkward and desperate. Yeah.
I love her facial expressions while he's talking. She's like looking him up and down, like, are you crazy? Like just the look of just like absolute like confusion on her face as he's talking is just amazing.
Yeah.
I like that she almost loses her composure. Like she's all about, being in control and being powerful. And she's like genuinely freaked out by this guy. And as anyone would, like anyone coming at you like that. I love that. I love that, just the added layer of, okay, this guy isn't just a weirdo. He's a psychopath. Like this guy is truly messed up in the head and he's got issues and, and her just like, I'll put you in a cage in the outer rim. And just like, yeah, please do put him out of his misery.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. Like it goes back to what you were saying earlier, Chris, about how we're sort of putting these characters, when we put them in new situations, we're sort of reminded of who they really are in this story. Because for the last several weeks, I think a fair reading on Cyril's character has been to be he's a bit of a sympathetic character. That he's lost everything.
A simp?
Shut up.
Sympathetic character.
Sympathetic. No, that's good. That's good.
But he's lost everything. He's down on his life. His mother is mean to him. All this stuff where you can kind of have a little bit of sympathy for him. And then in this episode, we're reminded, oh no, he's crazy. Like you were saying, Hannah, he's a psychopath. He's once he's taken out of, those breakfast scenes and back out into the real world, we're like, oh, right. He is not a good guy. Much in the same way that once you take Deidre out of the ISB building where she's going up against, all these other people who are trying to get in her way, and you put her in a scene with Bix, you're like, oh right, no, she is the villain. She's the bad guy. Once you take these characters out of those their sort of familiar settings, we're reminded, oh yeah, these are the people that are trying to stop our heroes. These are the people that want bad things to happen in the galaxy.
And I know this is a part of the writing that he has a very bland life. But it doesn't mean he has to eat the same meal every time. Someone give this guy, like, does he know like there's like other things you can have for breakfast? You can have some toast. Maybe let's see a Star Wars waffle or something. I don't know.
I will.
Yeah.
I do kind of sympathize with your criticisms, Anna, in regards to it feels like it always has felt like this is going somewhere. That like, okay, there's a purpose for Cyril, and he's, maybe by the end of the season, or maybe even the next season, there will be a stronger storyline for him and things. But it does feel like a little bit like, yeah, you're just kind of trying to remind you that he exists, and that he's pathetic,
and I'm like,
and he hasn't had a whole lot to do. And I'm like, okay, let's get to the point here. Let's move a little bit further along with this.
Yeah.
I wonder if this scene might be a bit instructive for where both of these characters are going for the rest of the season, because we've seen Deidre be very competent and evil, and we've seen Cyril try to be competent and come up very short, but he's also very driven. And I almost wonder if the way Cassian escapes whatever happens in the finale is because Cyril goes out and tries again to start up his own investigation and his own attempts to try and bring down Cassian, because Deidre made it clear she wants absolutely nothing to do with him. So he's going to try and get Cassian himself. If he's going to wind up screwing it up for her and screwing it up for the Empire in general, and that's how Cassian escapes, because that's a fairly sort of typical way things go wrong for the Empire, is, two people ostensibly on the same side, not moving in, not synchronized with one another, and wind up getting in each other's way.
After that scene, after that very awkward conversation, my reading of it was like, okay, these people are now going to have to be forced to work together. Like Deidre is going to end up realizing she needs Cyril for something, and she's not going to be happy about it because obvious reasons. So I think they were on a collision course. They've come in contact now, but I think this is not the last time they meet, and I think Cyril is maybe even despite himself will be useful in the near future.
Cyril, when Cyril says, when he's grabbing her and he's all creepy with her, is he actually just like obsessed with Cassian, or has he taken this obsession to another level? Like, does Cyril have a crush on Deidre and he's acting on it in the worst possible way?
Yeah, probably.
No, I mean, I think what it is he's looking for an in to join the Empire. I think that's what he's always wanted. I think he's always wanted to be an Imperial officer, and then he sees her as his way in. He thinks that he can convince her to bring him into the ISB, and I think that's what he's after. And I think the thing is, I think coming out of the depression of having everything go so terribly on Ferrix, sometimes, he's grasping onto his goal of being an ISB agent as kind of the only thing that's really motivating him and keeping him going. And that's kind of as much as he says to her. He says, like, this is, you kind of showed me purpose and something to aspire to. And so I think that's what's going on. Is like, this is the thing that's keeping him going. This is what he wants. He's not satisfied working in the cubicle place for the rest of his life. That's not what he wants in life. He actually wants to do something, and he wants to go after people. He wants to be a vigilante, but within the system, essentially.
I have a theory. That I think he's going to continue to be really kind of psychotic in the next couple episodes, just go kind of mad. And I think he might half purposefully, half accidentally kill Deidre.
Oh.
I think there'll be another confrontation. Maybe like he figures out how to get into her office or something, and she's alone in her office.
God.
And we see that just that moment where he grabs her arm, and you're like, oh, that was, as much as that's creepy and cringy and ooh, but I'm like, ooh, what if that's like alluding to like if just that, little grab of the arm is kind of weird, and odd and uncomfortable. Like, I think he'll maybe that's where his character going. He just is just kind of driven by madness, and then like just kind of kills her out of like this insanity that he's kind of brewing in him. There's a theory.
Yeah. Yeah. Very in line with this episode. Incredibly dark.
Yeah.
But yeah, it does feel like he might be about to snap, and I wouldn't want to be around when that happens. I mean, I'll see it on screen, but wouldn't want to be around.
I mean, it seems to be when he gets the most ambitious, people die. Like, so, that happened before, and it seems to be that, he's going to leave a path of destruction, and it's not over yet.
Yeah, certainly. Okay, this is apropos of nothing, but does Kyle Solar have really tiny pupils? Did anybody else notice this?
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Good.
Yes.
I'm not insane.
Now I'm not going to be able to not notice it.
Wait, so
They're
he's the only
beady.
actor?
They're very
Yeah.
beady eyes.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was such a great performance and such intensity in those eyes that I'm like staring in them, and then I've noticed I'm like, this is very tiny pupils. Anyways, that's apropos of nothing. Nothing.
But I mean, let's
against...
face it. Shout out to Kyle Soller himself for making such a fascinating character that has, for the last like 5 episodes, this has done nothing but eat cereal and sit behind a desk.
Yeah,
and we're like,
okay. So I want to know. Did they actually plan for her to dump cereal in his bowl and have one pebble fall out?
I don't think
planned?
so.
Or did that just happen that way? Like, I'm so curious because that is just such a meticulous thing to plan if they planned it. Like, imagine just thinking of the scene, like, and yeah, it's gonna end with her dumping cereal in his bowl, and then one falls out and he grabs it and throws it in his bowl. Like, that's like specific.
I did laugh out loud when he said, "I got a promotion," and her reaction was to pour him more cereal.
Yes. Oh my god.
All he ever wanted in life was his mother to pour him another bowl of cereal.
That moment is in my I did a reaction video of this, and in that moment I was like, well, at least you get cereal. At least you get more cereal for getting a promotion. That's a plus.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Amazing. Amazing. Well, let's move to the Mon Mothma scenes, and first we get another scene of her in the Imperial Senate. And I remember when we talked about the last scene that took place in the Imperial Senate, you all were like, there wasn't enough Imperial Senate. It was it went by too quick. Did we get enough this week?
No. No,
never enough.
This is this show is so perfect that there's only a few things that are very conspicuously wrong with it, and this is one of the things that is conspicuously wrong. The Senate scenes are shot bad. Like, I don't like the way that they're shooting the Senate scenes at all, because they should be having close-up shots of the other senators, and they're not, and it's annoying the heck out of me.
Oh, I know. I like the fact that it's the camera's staying on Mon Mothma and you just hear what the other.
Well, you can do that, but no wide shots. Like, if you're gonna go for perspective, then yeah, you got to shoot like behind her and have her perspective of, and then that'll show you scale. Like, this show in other situations is good at showing scale.
We got a pretty expansive establishing shot of the place.
But that's not good. That's not good. That kills the perspective. It makes it feel small. It makes it feel small if you're having a wide shot. The perspective is shown by having a shot.
Well, yeah, you have a wide shot to show where you are, to establish where you are. It's an establishing shot, and then it's been medium shots on Mothma pretty much.
You can't do that. If you do
Give
that,
me some close-ups of some ET, damn it.
Yeah, you have to come in from two perspectives. Either you have to be showing the scene from a character's perspective, or you have to show everything that's going on. And the problem is that they're not doing either. They're doing a large establishing shot that makes you think, okay, they're going to show.
Well, because they're showing where you are.
Yeah, but you can do that from her perspective. You can shoot that same shot and see the entire thing, but it has to be shot from behind her. Like, it can't be shot from just in front of everything, because then what it does is it gives you this idea that, okay, it's going to be this big thing and you're going to see all of it, but then you don't see all of it. Then you go back to seeing her. And what it makes it feel like is it makes it feel like a fan film. Like, it makes it feel like somebody who has a low budget and all they can do is shoot someone talking in front of a green screen and then a animated
this is where we're I think getting into, we just want to see Star Wars aliens, and so we want those shots of the other senators.
But no, it's the filmmaking thing. It just feels uneasy to me. Like, when I'm watching this show feels so natural. Like, this is the most realistic, natural feeling, edited and shot Star Wars show. It's absolutely, the cinematography and the editing of the show is absolutely amazing. And I remember watching those scenes and feeling very uncomfortable. It's just like, it wasn't edited or shot right. It just feels out of place.
I disagree. I'm looking at it right now. I think the way they did it was perfectly fine.
It makes it feel cheap.
Disagree, but that's a matter of taste on this one. It's just disagreed. Matter of taste. Okay.
Yeah, I couldn't pin it down to the shots, but I kind of agree with you, Chris, that there was some sort of element I couldn't put my thumb on, that it didn't feel like the actual Senate for some reason to me. No. It was just like, oh, this is like,
it felt like the Senate
again. It's like the LD. It's the LD version of the Senate.
The budget was too low for that.
I mean, it's clearly just like it's Genevieve O'Reilly on a green screen set, and there's nothing else.
Which is what the Senate has always been.
It's
been Natalie Portman on a green screen set.
You don't want it to look like that, and actually, like, you want your belief suspended more than that, or disbelief suspended,
or
less belief unsuspended.
Maybe that's a.
I was very disappointed in that scene. It's the only.
I still hope we get more scenes. I still hope we get more Senate scenes.
Yeah, and done right.
Yeah,
I don't know. I liked it with the lights turning off on the other pods and just hearing the other the sort of the bickering voices in the background. I liked it.
Oh,
I
really goes.
thought it was
I wanted
effective.
to see the characters. I wanted to see close-ups of the characters, or again, have it
Aqualish.
all from her perspective, and then it would have made
What's
more
that?
sense.
What's that? What species is that in the prequels where when they like are agreeing? They're like,
Yeah,
Aqualish?
those guys.
was that the Aqualish?
I think so.
With
Ponda
the,
Baba species, I think.
with the arm waving, yeah. The
iconic.
one thing I will say about the Senate scene that did slightly bother me was in the like main pod in the center. That's very clearly empty.
Yeah.
There's nobody there.
I thought there was somebody in that. I thought there was somebody in that.
Maybe there is, but there's
I
a
thought
couple
in
of
the
shots where
first
it looks
episode
empty.
where it showed up. I'm pretty sure it was empty, but I thought this episode looked like there was actually somebody standing there.
I don't know.
Which I was like, okay, are they going to zoom in on him? They never did.
I think
And this is where I say this is just wanting more Star Wars aliens. I was hoping for Masameda. I was hoping for Masameda or Sly Moore or one of those guys to show up.
I've got to say that the thing that's interesting about this show and interesting about it being a drama is we're used to the sets driving a lot of the sensation of watching Star Wars. Like we're used to paying a lot of attention to where they are, and that's like a big part of the story is they're on all these planets, there's all this crazy architecture, the ships, all this stuff, huge battles. And at moments this show does really focus on showing you a lot. Like the episode The Eye was absolutely incredible. And they showed scale and scope in that episode, and it just felt so realistically large in scale. And I think you also felt like that in the last episode, episode 3, the last episode of the Ferrex arc was like that as well. And I think the issue is that at this point, it's becoming very apparent with certain storylines that they're confined to specific sets. Like they keep going back to the dinner table with Serial Simp and his mother. And they keep going back to Mon Mothma's place in this one room in Mon Mothma's place. And they keep going back to the same ISB conference room. And it's just the same thing over and over and over again. And the show carries itself because it's about the acting, and the acting is so good and the plot is so good. But it does get a little bit jarring because I'm not used to in Star Wars them constantly returning to the same sets over and over again, because it's just not something that happens in the action adventure genre that Star Wars is, whereas this is not in that genre. So it's a bit...
It's sort of like Cassian is in one show and all the other characters are in another show. Like Cassian's in the action adventure show because he gets to go to all the different places every week. And everybody else is like their drama show. It's like, here is your set. You will be here for 80% of your scenes.
That's really what it is. And, they probably, filmed all those kind of like really went through all of them very quickly probably. And it was interesting. But but again, they do play to their strengths because of most of these sets they've built for themselves. They've designed them in ways that work with their budgets and their cinematography styles and their resources. There's very few things in this show that we've seen before in Star Wars prior to this show. But one of the big things that we have seen before and have seen quite a lot of is that Senate chamber, including that amazing action sequence in there in Revenge of the Sith. And so I think the issue is the show is really good at playing to its strengths and minimizing its weaknesses and then going all out in specific spots where it needs to strategically. And with the Senate, it can't do that because they didn't design that Senate chamber. If they had designed that Senate chamber for the show, and it would have been a different chamber, it would have looked really differently and fit better with their budget and their resources. But they had to make it look like the Senate chamber because it was the Senate chamber. But they can't afford to do that, and it's very clear that's kind of what's going on there. Is they're trying to recreate something from the films that they just don't have the resources to fully recreate, and they're trying to cheat, and it becomes a little obvious to the eye that they're trying to cheat. Whereas the other things, it's like, okay, you don't have those expectations of like someone eating cereal at a table being this like grand immersive scale experience. So they can get away with a very inexpensive set where there's just like one or two shots and there's not much to it in that situation. So I understand from a filmmaking perspective kind of what's going on here, and that's a bit of a, they just need to be a little bit more conscious of using psychology and perspectivism to kind of fix things. Kind of just like the concept of, Star Wars aliens who are in Halloween costumes or repurposed Doctor Who costumes from the 1960s sometimes look better in a dark, smoky environment than out in the sun. Like stuff like that.
Right.
Or a puppet looks better in a swampy, dingy, foggy environment than out in the sun.
Right. It's something I hadn't really thought of, was the fact that like the Senate scene, the Senate chamber is really the only thing, correct me if I'm wrong here, it's the only location from the films we've seen in this show. Everything else has been foreign, and that obviously messes with your head, because we, especially as prequel fans of the prequel generation, we're innately familiar with that thing. We've seen it in many scenes with the top of the line CGI graphics from way back in the 1999, 2002, 2005, and even going into the Clone Wars. So we're familiar with that, versus every other scene is something that is different that we're being introduced to.
Yeah. Anywho, let's talk about the scenes at Mon Mothma's house, the other set that she's allowed to visit. We get the reveal that Vel is her cousin, not Luthen's daughter, as
Vel
we were all
Mothma.
speculating.
Yeah, Vel Mothma.
Vel Mothma. What did we make of the conversation between these two, and what we learn about this? Whoever wants to take it.
I love that they're continuing this whole theme of the right and the left hand don't know what each other is doing type thing with the rebellion, where you have these two characters that are very involved with the rebellion and central to it, and they're cousins, and they don't even know what each other is doing. Like I think it's fascinating how they've chosen to compartmentalize it so much that if someone gets taken down, it's not going to take down everybody, to the point where even like family members don't really understand what's going on in their lives, and they're using kind of hints to imply things. Like that's just really fascinating.
I mean, there does seem to be one person that if they went down, it might spell doom, which would be Luthen. But even him, I feel like you could still work around that.
They could work around anybody going down. I think it's not, the rebellion isn't one person.
Yeah, I think as it's portrayed on this show, I think Luthen has a outsized influence.
Yeah, some do
on the rebellion.
It's funny that Luthen seemingly is in league with this idea, and of course Clea is out there telling Cinta and them to go and kill Cassian because they've got Luthen as it. Well, the Empire already has someone who knows Luthen better than Cassian was, which is Bix. So it's kind of, it's kind of all falling apart, but, it seems to be that, Luthen doesn't really tell Cassian anything. He just kind of, is vague about rebellion stuff. And we can assume that maybe even Bix doesn't know his real name, just knows him as the buyer. Yeah. But, it is interesting that, like, they're on to Luthen, the Empire, the ISB, they are on to him. And, what this means for his character going forward is going to be really interesting.
And it does make sense, this whole, not everyone knows who's working for the rebellion and in what capacity. Because, they have to, at this early point, they have to tread carefully. If you tell someone you think is confidential, hey, I'm starting this rebellion, Empire's awful, I'm going to rebel against it. If you tell one wrong person, the whole thing doesn't work. So it kind of makes sense to me that it is kind of not in shambles, but it's all these shards of different people trying to gauge the conversation. How much do you know? And, and then, obviously navigating the means they go about the rebellion, and that kind of contrast of how Luthen thinks they should go about it to how Mon Mothma thinks, and then even to how Saw thinks. I think that's really great story writing there, because that's very, I think, how a rebellion would go. You kind of have to see who's all in, who's who's going to be the leader, which method do we take? I think that's it's not just like they all go, are you going to be in the rebellion? Yeah. Are you going to be in the rebellion? Let's go. Like Power Rangers.
Yeah.
I think it's going to be.
Which is, I believe that's how they presented the formation of the rebellion and the Force Unleashed. It was just sort of like, here's a little meeting with Bail Organa, Mon Mothma, and Starkiller, and we're all just going to, yay, let's go.
Yeah. High fives. Woo. Yeah.
We're all in this together.
Amazing.
Excellent, Ben. Yeah. Excellent.
I'm just thinking about next episode because I keep going back to Cyril's. Oh, I could recognize Luthen's voice. I wonder if Luthen's Cyril's mom is like, oh, on the weekend, you're gonna go shopping with me for art.
Oh.
And then there's something goes down in that shop.
Oh man.
Oh, that would be so good.
That's a good one. I like
the perfect way to tie all of this in. Right down there, and they're going to buy a gift for Uncle Harlow. Make it just like really
Uncle Harlow,
bring it all in.
No. She's like, no. We're gonna go visit Uncle Harlow at his shop.
Yep.
There we go. That's it.
There it is.
Next week will be spicy.
Let's do our weekly check-in on Mon Mothma's family or immediate family, and we'll once again ask the question: what the hell is going on here? Because last week I came away from the episode feeling like something's going on here. Something is definitely happening here. Now I just think that her daughter is assuming her mother's having an affair. Like that's we've just gone right back to the other direction from something big is happening to just basic.
I love the line. I love when Vel and Mothma are talking and Vel's like, take home. I'm like, what's up with that? And like almost like, wait, are you with him or something like that? And Mothma's like, I don't have time for that. She's like, she doesn't right. It's not like, oh, how dare you insinuate that I'm cheating on my husband? It's like, I just don't have time for that.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not ruling it out that I would cheat on my deadbeat husband.
Not now.
I just don't have time for it. I got a rebellion to build.
Yeah. Let's take down the rebellion, like you said. Rebellion comes first. Then after that, everyone can have an affair.
Look, as soon as this rebellion is up and running, I'm dumping him.
I don't think she really answers the question by saying it's about the money. I don't really know if that assuaded
another great little note of this scene is when Perrin says to Vel, have you found a husband yet? Like, have you found someone yet? And as a young woman, and when I was discovering my own sexuality and, my queerness, the absolute relatability of that scene was just spot on. My God, like it's always like some sort of like uncle or like older cousin. They're like, oh, so you got a boyfriend? Yeah, maybe not husband, but you got a boyfriend. You're like, not quite. So I really props there. I feel like they're really doing a great job at making, Vel being this queer character and whether she's gay or whatever. Just very natural. It's a very natural thing. And I think that was a really great little expression of just, it's a thing. And like some people like Perrin just like doesn't notice or care or understand. And like, that's very real. And
there's a very knowing look between Mon and Vel after he says that. And they're like,
oh, that's so good.
It's like, okay, so clearly there are some members of the family who are closer than others.
Yeah. So good.
And just in general, Perrin, on top of that, the line, also just an asshole because he's like, oh yeah, all the good ones are gone by your age. Like how old is Vel supposed to be? She's like, and even if she was like 70 or something, like, gee, come on, Perrin.
Like, it's fine.
You'll have to find a widower.
Yeah. Oh my God.
It's like, jeez.
What a. Yeah. Again, right back to wishing Mon Mothma a very happy divorce.
Divorce story.
Yes. Good. Incredible stuff. Yeah, a great scene there. Great, and I loved just to sort of again, for Vel later. I'm not sure if it's later or before, but she's quoting Cinta to Mon, and so again, you're seeing the power of that relationship and how strong it is, even though they are separated by many a light year. So Tay. He's going to get Mon Mothma's legs broken with a metal pipe in the next couple of weeks, right?
There's going to be a horse head in her
her
bed.
They're getting involved with the mob, which is always I want to see what the Chandrillan mob is like. I imagine they're like, even their tough guys will have an air of class to them.
I mean, maybe she needs to read Nimic's manifesto, because he had his last little bit of it. The tail end of it was just like, hey, what are the place of mercenaries and criminals? How do they fit into the rebellion? And I mean, as we know in the future, some of the best heroes of the rebellion are criminals and scoundrels and mercenaries. So who knows?
Yeah, go ahead, Anna.
Sorry. A thought is entering my brain as I'm saying it, and I need to say it before it leaves. What if somehow the Empire find Nemic's manifesto? Because Cassian's in prison. We assume as you enter the prison system, you get all your belongings taken off you. He kind of only wore the clothes he had. But somehow they get a hold of his manifesto, and maybe it's scanned or someone reads it, and they find what was his name? What does he go by?
Clem.
What's Clem? Clem. Yeah. And they somehow start to piece that together, going along with this whole Sherlock kind of way. Piece together. Hang on, Clem. We know Clem. That was the name of this guy that was hung. That was Cassian's dad. Oh my, and maybe that they start to find him that way. There's a theory for you.
Yeah. Well, I would like there to be a scene next week when Cassian's getting out of prison, in which, much in the same way that they brought back Andy Serkis as a different character, I want them to bring back Frank Oz, but not as Yoda, but as his character from the Blues Brothers, who at the beginning gives John Belushi and back when they're getting out of prison. That's what I would like to see. Anyways, I don't know why I thought of that.
That's amazing.
Long walk for a short drink of water. But one thing we talked a lot about in the lead up to this show that hasn't really come to pass, and really wouldn't come to pass until towards the end of the season, is somebody's going to betray somebody. And I think the assumption on Mon Mothma's part is that if anybody's going to betray them, it's going to be this Davos guy. Which, by the way, if we're just going to bring people from other franchises in, I'd also like to have Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones come back and just continue to play a character named Davos. But I think she assumes that it's going to be him. Possible. I'm starting to worry that Tay is going to be the one to betray her. I think that's where he's too good. He's too nice. They've set him up in complete opposition to Perrin, who, as we've talked about, is just an unrepentant jerk.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing, though, is like, okay, so you're led softly to believe that he's to be trusted because he's the one that first starts hinting about his extreme political beliefs that are going to be too extreme for Mon Mothma's taste. So he leads in,
love that scene.
And then she comes in and starts revealing her part of things after he says that, which again makes you think you can trust him because he's supposed to not know that. But the thing is, that's a really soft lead-in, just to trust him just because he has extreme political beliefs. You haven't really shown that he has a skin in this fight, and you haven't really shown strong motivation. Like Mon Mothma herself, you haven't shown strong motivation. The only reason why we trust her is because as an audience, we know information the characters don't because we know her future. But if we didn't know her future, we might not even trust her and know her motivations fully behind this. But we certainly don't know his. So that brings up the question, think about how she's being watched. Think about how they're giving her like an agent for a driver who's watching her every move. Wouldn't it behoove the Empire if they're watching her to try to get somebody from her past that she trusts to start hinting about rebellious things to her and see if she'll open up about it? I mean, that would be a good way to get in there.
Well, and he knows. He's the guy who's seen the 400,000 credits disappear from the books. So it certainly would behoove the Empire to get someone from her past.
I do have to mention Davos, as he's not Davos. Well, actually, I can't even say how you're saying his name. How do you say
Davos?
It should be Davos. It should be Davos, okay?
Davo is a very common,
David.
Australian name. So.
Oh, okay.
Davo.
Davo.
Hey, Davo, mate. What a durry. Davo.
It's like
See
me
you at
trying
the
to say
pub,
Nevada. I can't physically say Nevada. It just come out right. I have to start talking like I'm from like Boston or like Ohio.
They should. I don't know, Hannah, maybe you have a suggestion for this, but they need to cast if that's how they're going with Davos/Davos, they need to cast the most Australian actor imaginable in that role. And I don't know.
You like for sure would have to be Hugh Jackman. Like Mon Mothma rocks up to talk about money. He's like, "How you going, mate? I heard you're in a bit of trouble."
No.
Let me help you.
Hugh Jackman is Canadian. I've seen all those Wolverine movies. He's Canadian. we stake a claim on him.
I love it.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Have we covered everything? Is that it? Have we gotten through anything else?
I believe.
Is it time for the corner? I feel like we all should go to the corner this week.
Huddle in the corner.
Yeah.
Team meeting in the corner.
Team meeting in the corner. All right. Well, I have to find there it is. Chris is on the ball with the graphics here. It's time for Ben's Connection Corner. Connection to the corner with Ben's Connection Corner. Da. Bap, bap. Ben?
Hey.
Over to you.
I found nothing. Literally, I've been skimming the episode the entire time we've been talking, and I found nothing.
I mean, we've mentioned we kind of stole the thunder by mentioning a lot of them before. Like we mentioned the Kafrene reference.
Okay, yeah, you're right. That was the only thing. Okay, I will mention something that I've been meaning to mention because it showed up in a couple episodes, not this episode, but other episodes. The speeder. There's a speeder. The big things that chase down Han and Kira in Solo. The big like speeder bike things, like big boxy speeders, they show up on Ferrix. They're like there, which is kind of further evidence that they're dipping deep into the London Lucasfilm archives and taking a lot of stuff from Solo and Last Jedi and stuff like that. So that's pretty cool. That's all I've got.
All he's got. That's the only thing in the corner this week, man. Well, I do want to just quickly also throw in R.I.P. Solomon Pack. I think we have seen the last of him.
Yes,
they're going to be hanging him.
I think next episode is when we might get some brutal stuff. I think that's going to kick off. I think when we get a rebellion going in the cell in the prison, we're also going to get a rebellion going on Ferrix.
Okay.
And gosh, them underestimating Cassian's mother, like, she's too old to do anything. Yeah, they don't realize that she's kind of leading that situation. That's interesting.
Yeah, she could kick your butt. Don't even worry about Marva. Could take all of you down.
Yeah. That's the scene I'd like to see next week is Marva getting some confirmation that the rebellion really is out there and is looking out for them, and that it's happening. Cinta's still kicking around on Ferrix. She could get in there and give that old lady some peace of mind. All right. Well, I think
like kill her. Do you mean kill her?
No, God, no. Just like let her. No.
Like you laugh. I think you meant like you laugh. Oh, that's his freedom.
I mean, this episode was dark, but not that dark.
I mean, okay, we haven't gotten to the Game of Thrones showrunners yet. They have a deal with another another.
Yeah.
This is just the House of Cards.
No, Marva must be protected at all costs. She can't. No.
B2 emo.
B2 emo, yeah.
B2
All of
emo.
those guys. The Ferrix, everybody on Ferrix. Like, given that we haven't actually spent a ton of time on Ferrix, I'm amazed at how attached I am to everybody there, whether it's, Marva and B2 or Bix or just Brasso. I love Brasso. That guy's
Brasso.
great. And Salman and his son, and love all those guys on once Tim got out of the picture, everything's been great.
It's good. It's gone good.
And don't
surely
forget,
in the next. Sorry, you go.
And don't forget the Cassian sister is still out there.
I mean, that's got to be season 2 at this point.
Yeah, surely.
She's just hanging out somewhere on Ferrix.
I mean, somewhere.
Definitely at the next some celebration or gathering of some sort. In all our hotel rooms, at a certain point, we all have to go out and clang metal things. The Star Wars community all together.
That's how they open the next celebration. Is everybody just gets a metal thing and they just march in.
Oh, man.
And that's how Celebration gets banned from whatever city it's in. I mean, like, never again. People have been banging metal things since 6 a.m. It just won't stop.
So
That's how Celebration will end up in Sydney. You guys will be fine with
that. Good stuff. All right, I think it is time to give some final thoughts and scores out of 10 for the episode. Nobody's listening. Ben, why don't you start us off? Final thought score out of 10.
Like I said, great episode. I mean, not my favorite of the bunch, but a really great, continuation of the story. Obviously, one that's leading up to something really big later in the season. Some of the best acting performances. Again, I didn't think you could top what happened last week, but I think they continue with this, and it's definitely showing like why they got Andy Serkis to do this role. Because I didn't know how big of a role was going to be, and then here we are having one of the, one of the career, I probably would assume, career best performances for Andy Serkis in this little episode of Star Wars. Like, who would have thunk it?
It's certainly one of his top 2 Star Wars performances of all time.
There you go. I mean, everything is firing on all cylinders, and we're leading up to something really big next week. Cannot wait for that. But I'll give this episode an 8 out of 10.
8 out of 10 from Ben. All right, Hannah, what about you? Final thoughts, score out of 10.
Yeah, I think this episode is oddly, I think it is my favorite of the whole season. Purely down to, because I think the performances from just everyone, we could give Bix, I'm going to say the character's name, Bix, we could give Deirdre, we could give Lino, Andy Serkis, like they all deserve awards for their performances in this episode. Like, it was just so believable. Even the doctor, even the creepy doctor, he needs some sort of an award for that performance. That was so good. So I really love this episode. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, which I think is going to be the highest I could give an Andor episode, because I think overall I'm always just going to have that 1 point off, because there's an element of the aliens, of maybe just a little bit of the aesthetic that I'm missing that isn't Star Warsy enough for me. But great episode. Really, overall, really loved the acting and intensity.
All right. Chris, what about you? Final thoughts, score out of 10?
So even though I loved House of Cards, I do feel like this is my least favorite arc of the show so far. It's not to say that it's terrible. It's just I think that the first 2 arcs and that kind of one-off episode that happened to transition between them were so perfectly executed. It's just hard to follow that up and maintain that quality throughout the whole show. And I do have little issues and feel a little off in spots about the last 2 episodes. I didn't, just for your records, Dominic, if you're going to be doing an average at the end of the season, 9 out of 10 last week. Last week, I was a little bit bored in spots. I felt like the editing dragged a little bit in that episode. And this one, my only issue is what I mentioned ad nauseum, which is the Senate scene. Like I felt like that should have either been left out or talked about or shot in a different way to match more of the aesthetic and budget of the show. I think it's taking the big budget cinematic world of the Star Wars prequels and then trying to jam it into a much more intimate show like this. I think it just doesn't fit really well. So this one I'm going to give a 9.5, but that's still so many great things. The acting was absolutely incredible. The writing was incredible. It continues to be meticulous. Every little thing means something. There are a couple spots here and there where I kind of am starting to question, like, okay, why did they do it exactly that way? Or why did that shot linger like that? And a couple things where I'm like, I feel like, it's not as noticeably perfect as the previous several episodes, but that being said, it's pretty darn close, and there's just some incredible moments, and I continue to feel like this is the best Star Wars show. The only thing that competes with me for this is there were moments during the Clone Wars show where I felt like the Clone Wars just was pushing what Star Wars was so beautifully, and like the way it ended with Siege of Mandalore was incredible. So that's the one thing that I kind of hold as the sacred, paragon of what Star Wars is. It's hard for this to come, up to that or surpass that. But within the mix of what are the new Star Wars films since Disney and all the Disney Plus shows, and also the stuff on Disney XD, I feel like this is the best quality stuff that we're continuing to get.
Okay. For me, I think I'm trying to remember what I gave last week. I think I gave it a 10. I think
we know you told everybody you were there to tell.
Yeah, but I can't remember. I can't remember for myself. And so I'm trying to sort of put this episode in context. I gotta give this one. I think I'm gonna give this one an 8.5. I really enjoyed it and really liked all the elements that that we've discussed tonight. But there was just something about this one I can't quite put my thumb on. That was just it didn't quite hit. It wasn't quite firing on all of the same cylinders that I thought last week was. Last week, I felt like it moved when it needed to move, and it was slow when it needed to be slow. And this week, I felt like the mix was just a little bit off. Still a great episode. Still, Andor continues to be just incredible in my view. So not a certainly not meant to be a major criticism of this episode. And for God's sakes, it's an 8.5 out of 10. That's a pretty good score. So I'll give it that. We got a couple of scores from the chat. Joel, who wasn't listening, gives the episode an 8 out of 10. Francisco goes with a 9.5. And Chosen Nightwolf with the 9 out of 10, saying it's an excellent episode. Let's run through some super chats. Again,
also known as Joel's Corner.
Joel's Super Chat Corner.
Joel's Corner.
First up, Joel says, as much as I love Andor, I do worry, as I feel like a lot of these ideas, themes, and sophistication are not going to fully culminate and permeate outside of this show and its creator, Tony Gilroy. I mean, as long as it comes together in this show and Andor itself feels like a complete piece of work, then I'm good.
This show is a piece of work. Which is weird. Give me two different things. Here's the thing about that is I think the Acolyte will do that. Everything that I'm hearing about the Acolyte, I think it's being constructed in a similar way to Andor. So I think that there's going to be some Star Wars shows that are kind of more mature and adult and drama based. And there's going to be some that are more popcorn action flick like shows. And I think that it's great that we're getting both. And I think we should continue to get diversity in the types of stories we're getting. And I don't think it's going to end with Andor. I think the Acolyte's going to be like this. And I think that there are going to be other shows in the future that are more like this. And then there's going to be more that are going to be like The Mandalorian and Ahsoka that are kind of more what we're used to before this show.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many people out there on the internet. They're like, oh, I want Andor I want all the Star Wars shows to be like Andor forever. And I'm like, yeah, as much as I love Andor, no, I don't want that at all. Like I'm looking forward to getting back into the Baby Yoda show and adventures with those dudes.
We were all talking earlier about this like tweet or Facebook post that someone had made about how like going to the Mandalorian season 3 after watching Andor would be like having an exquisite 3-course meal, and then after that having salsa and chips. And I responded, in a little chat when we were talking about that, like, I like salsa and chips.
Yeah,
salsa and chips are great. And just because I had like an
a lot of
amazing
people
dinner the night before wouldn't mean I'd be turning down salsa and chips the day after. It's like everything has its place, and sure, maybe we can have a little Mando season 3 as a snack, but that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and I feel like even calling it salsa and chips, and like at the very least, it's it's a proper meal. It's like at least it's a pizza. Like, come on.
Exactly.
Next up, Joel says, follow up to my last super chat question. But do you think or hope Tony Gilroy will return and maybe do a story set in a different era, like post Andor? I mean, I'm loving what Tony Gilroy is doing. I just sank in my seat. I was just fiddling with the bottom of my chair, and I accidentally pulled the lever.
To hyperspace.
Punch it, Chewie.
But I think. I mean, look, Tony Gilroy's done such a great job with the stuff that he's done that I'm totally game for him to come back. But I'm also game for other people to come in and do what he does, in the sense that they're coming in and doing their own thing, and they're not beholden to any sort of set of expectations for what Star Wars is or has to be. And so, and like Chris, I'm hoping that's what Leslie Headland does with the Acolyte. And finally, there's sort of a dark irony to the that the Great Revolution against the Empire ends with the restoration of the old elite, of which Mon Mothma is a part of. Yeah, I suppose. I suppose.
Yeah.
That that's where a post Andor show, or the Tony Gilroy post Andor show could be really interesting.
Star Wars has never been about as much the struggle between the elite and everyone else as it's been about the struggle between freedom and fascism, and the struggle between nature and machine. Like, I think Lucas is very much focused on the latter of those two struggles, than kind of the more socioeconomic struggle. And so while I think that there might be kind of some more hints of that getting into Star Wars, as more of the people making it want to highlight that social issue, again, I don't think it's ever been really central to Star Wars, and that's evidenced by the fact that one of your heroes is like a princess, and it's kind of like these elite Jedi characters who are all powerful that are your heroes in the story. You do have kind of a rags to riches story, in the sense that Luke was a farm boy, but like he wasn't really a farm boy. He was just being squirreled away and hidden. He really was, the child of a queen. So like, there's a bit of that kind of old storytelling, that old fairy tale storytelling, where all the characters are like princes and princesses and kings and queens and things, still kind of in the Star Wars structure.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we've talked about Mandalorian and all its cameos and everything. You know what would be a really good cameo on The Mandalorian? Mon Mothma. She's still around.
Yeah.
Genevieve O'Reilly can certainly play the part.
Yeah.
Why not? Mon Mothma for season 3 or 4, maybe. Season 3 is already shot, so who knows? But yeah.
Who would actually be another great cameo for Mando season 3 is Maz Guo. Love to see him.
He survived.
And with that,
he survived.
We will begin to wrap things up for this week.
All right. Thank you, everybody, so much for watching. Regular schedule, back to our regular scheduled programming. So we'll have another episode, same time, same place next week. The place is YouTube, and the time is Thursday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 6:30 p.m. Pacific. We have another time change, this time happening in America between now and then. So that means if you're not, if you don't live in North America, you might it might be at a different time for you next week than so
I'm not prepared. I'm not prepared.
That's happening. You can also listen to the show on your favorite podcast app after the fact, and we greatly appreciate that. And of course, 30 minutes before the show, that's when we do our pre-shows. Please.
Except this week when it was 15 minutes before the show.
It was 15 minutes. Sometimes we're a little late.
Whoops.
Yep, there it is.
Oh my God.
It's the time change.
There it is on the
Hannah's
calendar.
written it in her calendar.
Kind of important.
That's.
Well, me and Chris sat down like 2 months ago and be like, okay, where are all the time changes?
It's important.
Coming in handy. In handy.
Yep. So that's happening. And the way to listen to the pre-show is to join the SWU Network Discord. It's certainly worth it. There's a lot of fun opportunities to discuss things throughout the week over there. Link is in the description of this video, and podcast notes, I would assume, is well related to the audio versions of the podcast. Dominic, thank you so much for hosting.
Oh, it was my pleasure as always. Sorry, I'm just blocking someone from the chat.
I was about to do that.
There's a spam account in there. Yeah, great fun.
No, that is canon now in Star Wars thanks to Andor, but still, you're not allowed to do that over here.
Yeah, it's true. We'll keep that out of our chats at the very least. Yeah, great fun breaking down this episode. So much fun talking about this one. Really, really solid stuff. And yeah, like I said off the top, can't wait for November 12th and Grogu and the Dust Bunnies to come out from Star Wars Zen, whatever the hell that is. It'll be a nice preview for season 3 of The Mandalorian, I'm sure. But yeah, good stuff. Cannot wait for the next episode of Andor. Can't wait to be back here to break down the episode in a week's time.
And you can follow Dominic on social media at DominicJ25. And you can follow us as a whole at the SWU. Ben, thank you so much for hosting as well.
Oh, it was a pleasure as always. We turned a very dark subject matter into a pretty lively discussion. So
we got it all out at the beginning of the episode, and then we never talked
like,
about it.
Oh my God, what did I just watch? And then we were over it. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. And yeah, we're gonna have a lot to talk about next week. So looking forward to that. Look, I'll plug something. I haven't done this in a while. So you may remember me and my buddies Zach Arnold. We do a podcast together called IPC. We actually recorded an episode again for the first time in forever. We recorded our official October episode on November 1st.
I don't think there's enough exclamation points in this graphic that we've got here.
Yeah, it's just shameful. But yeah, we have a new episode. It's not out yet because I have still have to edit it and I haven't had time. But yeah, we talked about our top 5 post-credit scenes, and oh my God, that's a lot of exclamation points. And a whole lot of other stuff, and the news. And Zach has not seen Andor, so I'm like trying to pitch him on it and hype him up for it. So yeah.
Wait, Zach has to be convinced to watch Andor.
I mean, yeah, maybe. We'll see.
There's dinosaurs in it. You gotta wait. It's gonna pay off later in the season, but there will be dinosaurs.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, tune in for that on the coming few days, weeks.
Awesome. Make sure to check that out. And at Ben Hart with no E is where you can follow Ben on social media. Hannah, thank you so much for hosting too.
That is my pleasure. It's always a great time to break it down here. I do have to say, it's very odd that like this is the first week that all 3 of you were like, it wasn't not the best episode, but I come in and I'm like, this was so good, guys. This was the best episode I've seen. I don't know what that means, but it's fun to discuss, and that doesn't stop us from having a very fun and enjoyable Star Wars time. So yeah, great show, and yes, I don't know what else to say. Catch the Raeside live every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific, but that might change to 6 p.m. Pacific. But I'll update you over there about that. And yeah, you can catch me on social media at the Raeside for some more Star Wars banter. I've just tweeted out who is Uncle Harlow, so let's have some discussion about who that could be.
Awesome. Make sure you check that out at the Raeside, RAE side, and you can follow me at Seek3PO. And I'm excited if you're watching. We've got our Andor Culture Slate shirts out now over at Culture Slate. Great design by our awesome graphic designer Carl over there, and you can find that at cultureslate.com/store. There it is, cultureslate.com/store. So get your Andor themed Culture Slate t-shirts. We want to remind everyone that you can support us financially by super chatting, and huge thanks to Joel and everyone else who can super chat. You can become a channel member, and that's another way that you can support us as well. We'll be back with another episode next week, but until then, for Hannah and Dom and Ben, my name is Chris, and may the Force be with you.
You gotta admit, it's catchy. It's catchy.
It's very catchy.
Hear this in my sleep.
Yeah, turn it up.
Far out, dude. What a riff.
Oh god, I thought that was the end of it.
Oh no, it never ends. It never ends.
Never ends.
It's Imperial Prison, it never ends.
Oh my god, this is what Bix heard. This is what was in the earphones.
I just hope there's a lot of memes on that one. If not, I got it.
It's a wrap.
I know.